Hello everyone, my name is Warda and I will be talking about our research titled Distrust of Big Tech and a Desire for Privacy, Understanding the Motivations of People Who Have Voluntarily Adopted Secure Email. The internet is enormous, where over 319 billion emails are sent every day. Most of them are unencrypted, sent and stored in plain text. But we do know that there are some rare people that do use secure email as well. These sparse colored dots that you may see represent users of encrypted email services across different platforms. In our research, we decided to zoom in on these users and understand their motivations. Why are they using secure email when the internet at large has decided not to? The work around secure email falls into three categories. Number one, studying reasons for non-adoption. Meaning, why do people not use secure email despite the various security and privacy benefits? We have a well-developed understanding of these reasons as a community. Some of them are listed here, such as not having complete mental models of how secure email works, not having enough motivation, having fragmented threat models, meaning not having a consistent and strong understanding of what threats their emails might be vulnerable to, and the overall inconvenience of and switching to and using a secure email service. The second category of work has focused on evaluating and improving the usability of secure email to possibly increase adoption. We have work from the late 90s showing PGP-based encryption was not very usable. That started a series of efforts to improve the usability of secure email. And today, we have systems like Proton Mail and Tutanota that are largely similar to popular email providers like Gmail. The third part, however, remains quite unexplored. We do not have a detailed understanding of what actually does motivate people to use secure email systems. This is the gap we try to fill in with our research questions, which are, why do people voluntarily adopt secure email systems? What are their threat models? What are their mental models? And whether they use these services effectively and any obstacles in doing so. To study this, we opted for a qualitative exploratory study. We first did a screening survey for eligibility requirements and then an interview to study our research questions. Recruitment for this study was quite challenging because users of secure email are relatively a minority group which we were trying to recruit from the general public. And they have no one distinguishing character like location either. They could be anywhere, could be anyone. So we had to put in substantial recruiting efforts and try out several different channels, which I'll briefly talk about for anyone going through similar challenges. We first recruited through the official subreddits of Proton Mail and Tutanota. We posted our study invitation on several general subreddits as well. Because users from Reddit were more technically inclined, we also tried recruiting through Amazon's Mechanical Turk. Unfortunately, all the participants from Mechanical Turk were actually non-users trying to scam us and participate in the interview for the compensation being offered. So we then switched to Prolific. We also placed a Google ad for our study, which received about 64,000 impressions and 1,000 clicks, but no one signed up for an interview through that channel. For details of eligibility and screening, please refer to our paper. These are the final demographics of our participants that we were able to recruit. We got a diverse sample in terms of location, technical background, the amount of time participants had been using Proton Mail, and the frequency with which they used it. I will now talk about our results. Since we had a lot of findings, for brevity, I will only talk about the most prevalent findings for each research question. I'll start with the first one. Why do people voluntarily adopt secure email systems? The first big reason of adoption was that our participants distrusted big tech products and wanted to escape those ecosystems. For example, a participant from Reddit says, over the past few years, I've been trying to wean myself off of Google and other big tech products because I think they're kind of poisoning my mind. This sentiment was particularly strong for Facebook and Google among our participants. Conversely, our participants trusted Proton to be a more conscientious company and were therefore using it. No surprise, the next big reason we saw was a desire for privacy. We characterized the different conceptualizations of privacy our participants described into 5 models. First was privacy as a fundamental right. Participants with this model said that privacy should be the default on the internet. The second model was privacy as anonymity. Participants in this group really preferred that Proton Mail was not tracking their IP addresses, was not asking for a backup phone number or email, and these participants were using pseudonyms for their Proton Mail accounts. Third was privacy as secrecy, meaning that my data is only mine to look at and nobody else should have access to it. Fourth was privacy as control. Participants in this group did not necessarily think that their data was secret, but they wanted to decide who it should be shared with and under which conditions. And finally, privacy as a commodity. Participants with this model viewed privacy as something that can be bought and sold. So they said, for example, that they were exchanging privacy for the services they were receiving from big tech companies. For our second research questions, we studied what entities they feel could access or misuse their data, the mitigation strategies they know or employ, and we also studied how severe and how probable they think the attack is. For brevity, I will only talk about one of the attackers our participants talked about out of the 5 we describe in the paper. Our participants mentioned surveillance by government and intelligence agencies as a threat to the privacy of email communications. They particularly mentioned that the Five Eyes alliance countries are more likely to engage in surveillance and similar activities. Therefore, for mitigations, they suggested using secure email systems which are outside the government's reach. They specifically trusted Proton and Tutanota because they're based in Switzerland and Germany, respectively. One interesting thing we noticed here was that while our participants considered such surveillance to be life-threatening, they still weren't particularly concerned because they did not perceive it to be highly likely to happen. Instead, they were more concerned about big tech companies having and using their data because even if the consequences of that were not too severe, the perceived likelihood was extremely high. For mental models, we studied their understanding of how Proton Mail works. Since our sample was diverse with respect to their technical background, their mental models varied drastically depending on their technical knowledge. We broadly grouped them into 2 categories. The first model was based on trust rather than knowledge. Participants with this model had at best only a vague understanding that Proton Mail uses encryption. When asked to draw how an email is sent through Proton Mail, one of the participants drew this, saying, "I don't know how it works, I just know that my emails are sent and received safely." The second category was participants with strong mental models of the mechanisms underlying encryption of Proton Mail. They also understood that with ordinary email providers, there is TLS and the emails are encrypted in transit, but they did understand that their emails are not encrypted at rest and providers have access to them. While some of them made technical errors in describing how encryption exactly works, they overall understood the concept of encryption at rest, symmetric and asymmetric encryption, and the protections it provides. For usage, we studied how our participants use secure email, whether they use it effectively, and any obstacles they feel they have in doing so. To send an email through Proton Mail to someone using any other service, you can encrypt the message by setting a password and sharing that password with the recipient. While most of our participants were aware of this service, they reported barely ever using it. They also mentioned that only 5% of their usual contacts use secure email. So essentially 95% of their emails are still going unencrypted. And they understood that. But one factor contributing to that was that interoperability for encrypted email is just not available as of now. And the second factor was that their affordances for using secure email went beyond just sending and receiving emails. For example, some participants were using their Proton Mail accounts to keep activities separate from their primary online identity by using pseudonyms. Another example is email compartmentalization, where they were using Proton Mail only for receiving subscription newsletters, so big tech companies won't know their interests. They were using Tutanota for financial communications, Outlook for shopping websites, and Gmail for everyday usage. So essentially, they had compartmentalized which service they want to use for which part of their life. Some participants also reported using secure email accounts as disposable accounts that they use for a particular purpose and then discard, such as using it to create a Facebook account only for selling something on Marketplace and then deleting it or abandoning it. Finally, our study led to 3 takeaways. One, that privacy is a key motivation since some participants indicated that they prioritize privacy over security. Second, that privacy benefits are broad. It's not just that users want privacy while sending or receiving emails, but they rather have broader uses for secure email and the kind of privacy they want for those users. Third, that there is a missed opportunity. Even when users adopt a secure email system, they still remain largely unsecure because of the lack of interoperability. Future research should explore ways to encourage users towards password protecting their emails when sending to users outside the system. Or maybe a better way to provide greater privacy for existing users is to enable interoperability between secure email systems. Imagine how great it would be if we could go from this map of the internet to this. With that, I conclude my talk, and I'm happy to take any questions.